One unique aspect of Persona, one of the many things that separates it from the rest of Megami Tensei, is the personas. Each character, Persona 3 onwards, rather than merely equipping any demon as a persona, each character instead has their default persona be a more personalized manifestation of said character, with a lot of creative liberties taken with them and their designs, as they represent what the characters think and feel about a given topic or idea they find deeply personal and open to their interpretation, such as Rebellion in Persona 5. Arguably, this is at its most profound in Persona 4, where the Shadow Selves' deformed manifestation embody emotional failings, while the personas that form afterwards represent the characters taking the first steps in overcoming them by donning them as a source for internal strength, or their conceptualized journeys of self-improvement. I've seen many people say that Persona should revert back to the way that Personas worked in classic Persona, where anyone could equip any Persona, but I've always disagreed for both game balancing and because of the potential and unique symbolism present in personalized Personas that the more standard designs just can't convey on that individualistic level. These more situational designs also play into Carl Jung's own work, as perhaps best exemplified by this quote of his. The most important question that anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? The whole point of Jesus' life was not that we should become exactly like him, but that we should become ourselves in the same way that he became himself. Jesus was not the great exception, but the great example. End quote. This quote sticks out as one of the fundamentals that explains Jung's ideas and the use of allegory of folklore, history, and mythology as pathways and self-guides to greater wholeness, and is also something strongly represented in Persona by the unique personas that each character is allowed to don as a piece of themselves. While I have problems with how some Jungian terms are handled and represented more as concepts which can at times be used more because they sound smart and cool without any insights into the ideas put forwards, individual personas are perhaps the best example of persona representing Jung's understanding of psychology and the use of allegory effectively within the confines of a fantastical narrative. And this of course leads to the question of which potential personas can and would appear in Persona 6, and why that would be the case. I'm here to put forward some speculation based on the confirmation of Persona 6's dominant color as green, what potential thematic purposes this color holds, and how that relates to previous instances of this color as it often represents the neutrality or balance alignment. This concept will be divided into two videos. First, some ideas for some potential initial personas, and then a follow-up for potential ultimate personas. Typically, I would have put an outline for my selections like it must be a demon that has appeared in the franchise previously, or cannot be one that has already been used to represent a character, but as I feel that such a limitation would be counter to the point of personalized personas, there will not be any such limitations for this list. With that said, let us begin. A Chinese folk hero, Hua Mulan is a Chinese poem from the Northern and Southern Dynasty era of China, meaning the 4th to 6th century, about a woman who disguises herself as a man to replace her father in the military draft. A premise which served as the basis for a really great classic Disney movie, its forgettable sequel, and a virally terrible live-action remake. I've made no secret that one of the big things that I want in the upcoming Persona games is better representation of LGBT+ characters. And I don't think that it's much to ask that they are treated better in conception than as predatory stereotypes, especially with the precedent of Naoto and Kanji, which, while not perfect, are beloved characters that many on the spectrum felt represented by and could relate to. But I have a video planned for that topic at a later time. One of the potential and subtle ways to communicate that a character would be gender non-conforming without limiting said character to a singular potential reading would be to have a character's persona present as the contrasting gender to the user. Mulan can fill that niche while also working for a girl as well as a guy, given that Mulan was a cross-dressing woman in her folk story, and thus her being a persona can further provoke the potential to resonate with a variety of different identities to feel seen and represented in the game, such as a trans man, gender fluid, and perhaps even ones less obvious like demigender or agender, as well as those who would fall outside of this category otherwise, such as a girl who identifies as a girl but prefers masculine presentation over a traditionally feminine one, a presentation akin to the story of Mulan. Given that neutrality is often at least advocated as the side of humanity, an innocent faction caught in the middle of the war between God and the devil, a conflict of law and chaos, human heroes like Mulan are the most likely candidates to be the personas of our protagonists. And while SMT has a pantheon of great heroes to choose from, few in my opinion would be as fitting as Fionn McCool. For the same reason that he was a good addition in concept and a bad addition in principle to the canon of creation, his knowledge. In SMT1, the recurring theme was balance leading to a form of spiritual enlightenment. Many humans had reached levels impossible to reach by God or the devil by virtue of their humanity superseding the shallowness of the insular ideas that the demons represent in their singular drive for their respective ideologies. Fionn McCool can therefore represent this aspect of neutrality, possibly even being the persona of the main protagonist, whose journey could even follow that of Fionn McCool's mythology in assimilating knowledge as the more worthy by being the one who does the work, in contrast to an arrogant monarch, one who could represent either law or chaos as one faction in conflict with the other, while the protagonist becomes a third one not defined by ideas so much as a balance of differing ones. Something that requires an intellectual and emotional understanding of the perspectives and ideologies, again relating back to knowledge. Konohana Sakuya was of course Yukiko Amagi's persona in Persona 4, but I also feel that she'd work quite well for Persona 6's balance theme, given her mythology and associated symbolism as the goddess of one of Japan's most important places of spiritual significance in Mount Fuji, and her symbol being the sakura petals. Now, Konohana Sakuya is a very dynamic kami in mythology, so I'm only going to be focusing on the two major reasons why I feel that she can work as a persona within the context of Persona 6, which translates to two major themes of the color green: health and the natural world. The latter is, of course, self-explanatory as a nature kami who keeps volcanoes from erupting, thus preserving the natural beauty of the mountains, but the former will require a bit of context. As many of us still recall how the world was forever changed in the 2020s when the pandemic hit, causing massive repercussions that we are still feeling, if this serves as an inspiration, or at least is commented on in Persona 6, then Konohana Sakuya is a solid choice for Persona, as in mythology, she instructed and guided a young boy to help cure a village of a smallpox outbreak. By far the most common race of demons to be of the neutral alignment are the fairies. Sometimes Jack Frost or Jack-o'-lantern go chaotic because they're being edgy, but mostly the fairies stick to themselves and avoid the debate of law and chaos. They do not submit, and yet they do not resist. They strive for coexistence, not always the best idea, and very rarely does a game dwell on the implications or nuances of neutrality as a whole, but I do appreciate the idea to connect a staple race with the ideology at least. Hence why I feel that a fairy would be a very fitting starter persona. Vivian, the Lady of the Lake, would fit this role relatively well. She's one of the Fae folk, has a role to play in helping to create a benevolent monarch in King Arthur, who never saw himself as above his knights and always strove to rule justly in legend, but at the same time she's also disconnected from the lawful elements of the monarch she helped, and is instead a part of the chaotic natural world beyond. And thus, as one who embodies both of these contradicting yet not mutually exclusive aspects, she'd naturally be a solid balanced persona. If you're a lover or a hater of the Seven Deadly Sins, Nanatsu no Taizai, then you're likely familiar with the character Escanor, named and based off of a character of Arthurian legend who, like his anime counterpart, had great power that would wax and wane each day as the sun rises and falls, reaching his peak at high noon. This mythological concept makes a really interesting idea for Persona, with perhaps a unique moveset and traits to reflect his mythology, not unlike the moves in Persona 5 that directly correspond with certain weather phenomena, like climate decorum. Escanor could have traits or passive skills that could increase strength, accuracy with insta-kills, and a greater critical hit rate during the day, but with less power, defense, and accuracy at night, or if the sun is blocked by the rain or fog. By bringing back the impact of weather, as well as requiring the player to explore different sections of the dungeons at different times, day and or night, Escanor's use could now scale to reflect these needs, which can help keep the team composition feeling fresh and forcing a player to engage with it, choosing when and how to explore the dungeons at what times for maximum effect, highlighting the more dynamic schedule of the double life versus the mundane consistency of the normal life. As Persona 6 is likely going to be based around the concept of neutrality, it feels only right to include a demon heavily associated with said alignment. And there is no better fit than Lao Zi, a Chinese philosopher who was essentially the equivalent to YHVH and Lucifer in the first SMT game, and whose existence as an enlightened human helped to inform a lot of important distinctions between chaos and law, as singularly focused extremes versus more nuanced case-by-case optimization that will either deny or accept either perspective that neutrality or balance advocated for. Lao Zi, for those unaware, is an ancient Chinese philosopher from the 4th century BC, who is considered the father of Taoism through his work by the same name, the Lao Zi, but his actual historic existence is debated, given that the work was meant to be anonymous, and many peculiarities can posit the work as being done by a singular person or a compilation, as was common for many ancient Chinese texts. The context of him being multiple people could actually lead to a reading of the persona user being a wildcard who embodies multiple archetypes and personas, just as Lao Zi would as a work by multiple people, which, when combined with his pre-existing appearance in the franchise, makes few other obscure demons more worthy than him. Now, what did you think of my list? Did you like my 6 recommendations? Would you assemble a different roster for a neutral Persona game? You can let me know down in the comments section. Also remember that this was mostly initial Personas and that next week should be the ultimate Persona list. So if you are wondering why some demons, specifically major deities like the recurring Susanoo, are not on this list, then know that they might be considered for the ultimate Persona edition. If you enjoyed this video, then on screen right now is some recommendations for more of my content. And know that I've made quite a number of videos for potential Persona 6 stuff. From colors, mascots, to the use of the color green, and more, with more to come still, so subscribe if you are interested in Persona 6 lists of 6, and I will see you next week.